Welcome to AGACAD's Framing Timber and Steel Roofs webinar. My name is Pavlas. I'm BIM Application Engineer here at AGACAD. Here we specialize in creating applications for Autodesk Revit based on the needs of world's leading BIM practitioners. Our aim is to eliminate tasks that do not create value. AGACAD has developed the widest range of true BIM software in the world. It covers wood and metal framing, precast concrete design, and MEP systems design. Today we're going to talk about BIM solutions called wood framing roof and metal framing roof. They're both intended for detailed design of timber and steel framed roofs using prefabricated panels or traditional rafter construction method, as well as roofs that consist of trusses. Wood framing BIM solution for Revit has been recognized as an AEC industry partner by partner solution by Autodesk Revit itself. Okay, so to begin with, Roof Plus as a package consists of a couple of ways to frame our roofs. So one of the ways is to, if you are dealing with prefabricated construction, we can use Roof Plus to create prefabricated roof panels. We can create detailed multi-layered timber roof framing for Revit model. We can frame large roofs with identical panels 10 times faster than standard Revit interface. The tool automatically distributes battens, secondary frames, and roofing. We can find structural and engineering clashes. We can cut and frame openings automatically. We can generate shop drawings, schedules, and create views. We can add tags and dimensions automatically. We can then export all that data to CNC and CAD/CAM production lines if needed. Okay, the other way, if we are dealing with some more traditional roof framing, then we can use, we can sort of adapt the workflow to for rafter roofs based on rafter construction method. We can automatically split an architectural roof by faces, which I'll show you later. And again, we can create detailed and multi-layered roofs with Roof Plus. Okay, and the other way is if you are using trusses as your primary structural framing elements, we can use a Truss Plus that comes together with Roof Plus as within the package. Okay, so we can design and generate trusses and truss systems for roofs and floors as well. We can generate views, drawing schedules like I mentioned before. We can create bespoke truss families with custom parameters. We can create unique trusses with inbuilt truss builder. I'm not going to show truss builder in this webinar, but we have covered this in the past webinars. If you go to our YouTube page, you can find this video, so you can have a look at that. Okay, so we're going to cover in this webinar. We're going to design and generate roofs and multi-layered roof panels. We're going to split roofs into prefabricated panels. We're going to design and generate truss systems and roof trusses. And we're going to generate shop drawings. The software is continuously updated. So we have just released our Revit 2021 software update, which you can already download from our website. That includes some new features, like here we have end types for rafters, and we have various connection types that we can include within our sort of framing workflow. And here on the left-hand side, we have some a bit more complex type of prefabricated roof panels. Okay. We're going to end up with framed roofs using traditional framing and prefabricated panels as well as trusses. Okay, right, so before we move on as well, I'd like to say that we're going to kick off our free 45-minute training sessions starting this Friday and also next week, Tuesday. So if you download our free trial from the website and you sort of need a good foot to sort of begin learning how to use the software, we're going to provide all of that information during the free trial. So we're going to send invitations to all of you attending this webinar just now. and then the ones who are interested, you're welcome to join on Friday or Tuesday. Okay, so let's move on to our Revit model. Okay, so just quickly before we actually begin framing, once you install Tools4BIM Dock, okay, all of our software is accessed via Dock. So Tools4BIM Dock is going to appear at the top of your ribbon. If you click Show Dock, the dock is going to appear on the right hand side. If you just expand it, and then you can go to wood framing in this case and look for wood framing roof. Okay, and if you click this icon, it's gonna, the roof plus itself is going to appear as an individual panel, and you just pull it out to your screen for convenience, and all the functionalities within that roof plus sort of interface menu. Okay, you can close the dock and continue using the roof plus. Okay, right, so let's move on to our model. So we're gonna begin with framing, generating trusses and framing those trusses for our first example. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna pull out my Truss Plus panel. Right, so we have this Revit roof that is modeled. It's just a simple Revit roof. What it does have is a base offset from level, which is important. So you, in this case, is 210 millimeters. If you set your base offset parameter to allow space for actual trusses, so our trusses are going to be generated between the top plate of a wall and sort of the bottom face of our roof. Okay, so that 210 just allows space for trusses, and then the remaining, well, we're gonna still use this roof once we have generated trusses. I'll show you how to use it for generating additional layers that normally go on top of your truss systems. Okay, so we're gonna begin with generating the corner grid here. So if you go to Truss Systems drop-down menu, and if you go Insert Truss Systems Grid by Roof Lines, that means we're going to insert grid by multiple roof lines as sort of reference points for the software. So we just pick corresponding roof, and if we just begin inserting, well, actually we just begin with picking the model lines that are, you can see in green, those green lines, perimeter model lines. So we just pick those accordingly to just follow the instructions here. We click OK. Then we have a window that pops up telling us to select the type of grid that we want, and then we can also define various parameters here. So by default, I'm just going to go with standard grid system. Okay, and in real time, you can see how it's being inserted, and it shouldn't take too long. Okay, so our corner grid is in place. Okay, so far these are just sort of analytical lines that come under structural framing type. Okay, right, so let's now use the first one to insert by a single roof line. Okay, again, select the roof you're working with and then select the gable end. In this case, it's automatically giving me the gable end grid system. If I click OK, that is in place. Can select this, and the grid itself has the grid itself is actually a family, like everything else we're going to deal with today. So that family can be edited because it has quite a lot of parameters. Okay, so in this case, I want to switch off that last common truss. Okay, so if I go to Constraints, Show Last Common Truss, if I tick this off, the truss is going to disappear, so I'm just going to be left off with the truss before the gable end and the actual gable end truss, as well as sort of a cantilevered truss, which I'm going to generate just in a few minutes. Okay, and then we are missing the larger piece of truss, which we're going to generate using multiple roof lines again. Okay, select the roof. Okay, right, pick this one here. Pick the one opposite. So picking those lines just helps the tool to actually understand the roof shape and the geometry of the roof. Sometimes it's enough to pick one line. So in this case, I'll pick this one. but also I picked this one and this one here to sort of allow the tool to pick up the roof pitch, so it generates the grid correctly. Okay, so I'm going to use this sort of step down truss system. If I insert 0 in the end pitch, that should work fine. Okay, so that is in place, and those grids again, they can be moved by hand if you want. So if I'm just moved by 50 millimeters to the right, that works fine. Okay, and what I'm going to do also, select that newly inserted grid and then untick set main roof. By unticking this, we're going to allow to generate valley set grid. Okay, so we are missing valley valley truss grids here. It has inserted on the wrong side, but that's no problem. We can scroll down and then tick side left valley and then untick side right valley, so we get those valley grids on the correct side. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to begin with generating the gable and truss system. So if I select that grid, if I go to Trusses tab, drop down menu, Truss Systems tab, drop down menu, generate trusses. Okay, the window is going to come up asking me to sort of specify what kind of trusses I want to have for the grid, because the grid consists of more than one truss. I can define which types of trusses I want to use for the entire grid. Okay, so those are fine as they are right now. If I click OK, those trusses are going to be generated, and still I'm going to retain the grid itself, but I'm going to also have my actual trusses. Okay, so during the webinar, if you have questions, feel free to ask. So it's better if you just write down your questions tab, and then I'm going to have a look at it right at the end of the webinar. Okay, so those trusses are generated. I have 3 types of trusses. So this is attic truss, right gable end truss, and then the cantilevered, what you call it, just two sort of rafters, you would say. Okay, so what I can do further, if I select one of those truss elements here, truss framing members here, and then the one opposite end, have those 2 selected. You go to trusses, drop down, frame 2 beams. So I'm gonna have a 1200 offset from the bottom, and I'm gonna space it out at 300 millimeters, and then beam type I've already selected 33 by 90 millimeters. Okay, if I select OK, I'm gonna frame the 2 trusses here. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same for this one here. Okay, so like I said, each truss consists of framing members that in itself are basically Revit families with quite a lot of parameters loaded into them. So we can change those parameters by instance, and we can edit those parameters by type, just like you would normally do with Revit families. Okay, and those Revit families come together with the tool once you install, whether it's Truss Plus or entire package of Roof Plus. Once you install it on your workstation, you open Revit, like I showed, Tools4BIM Dock is going to appear, but more importantly, you're going to be able to load those families in the project. So once you start a new project, what you do first, you load those families. So in the Truss Plus case, you would have configurations drop-down menu, and you can load roof truss types and floor truss types. Okay, so before, each new project first would need to have those families loaded, and then once you start framing, the software uses those families as framing members. Okay, and you can find those families under here. Families drop down, structural framing. There we have quite a lot of families that we are working with. Okay, right, so that is done. What I'm going to do now, I'm gonna swap those trusses. So if I select that one truss here, go to Trusses drop-down menu, replace from database. Okay, so in this case, I want to have more sort of room for this sort of attic scenario. So I'm gonna swap it to scissor type truss. Okay, so that was a database you just saw. And if you select your truss and you click OK, it's going to be swapped. That database is, comes as a default. You can create your own trusses, of course. You can create your own families for framing members, or you can use existing ones and so modify to your needs. Okay, so that's the trusses in place. What it's now missing is pitch bottom angle that I'm gonna set to 30 degrees. Okay, so that's done. What I'm gonna do now is just update from roof to get those intricate details framed out properly for the scissor truss. Okay, and once this is done, I'm gonna array a bunch of those trusses where we are missing those. Okay, so if I select that one truss, go to truss drop down menu, copy array. Okay, if I go to array, I'm gonna try to fit in those windows so I don't have to move the windows and trusses fit in properly. I'm gonna have 9 of those at 800. Okay. Right, so there we have our scissor trusses and kind of fits in nicely with windows. Those windows can of course be additionally framed. They would have to be additionally framed, but we can use Roof Plus to do that. Okay, and perhaps what I just need to do now, if I select that one truss and go to truss systems, select trusses from the same group. So that's going to multi-select all those trusses. And I want to update truss, update roof / floor truss. So I'm gonna update those trusses according to the new location in the roof. Because I have arrayed existing truss, where in this case it sort of faces the external side of the roof. I have copied that same truss right through where I needed. And it made copies of that truss. So because those are no longer, that side of the truss no longer is facing the external surface of the roof, the end cuts would need to adapt to the new location. So if you just select truss like I did and update according to the roof geometry. Okay, so right. What I'm going to do now, select this one, this bigger truss here. If you generate trusses for this grid, that all seems to be fine. So I'm going to generate this truss, and then I'm going to generate the L truss grid. Okay, that's in place. And then if I just select the corner grid, generate trusses, click OK. So generally speaking, Roof Plus can make framing roofs way faster and easier with real-time full project updates in Revit. It generates views with automatic dimensions for roof panels or segments, as well as accurate bills of materials and shop drawings. So quality production and accurate assembly on site are ensured. Once roofs are finalized and generated, you can sort roofs and structural framing members, create assemblies, create shop drawings for each truss or roof panel. Another great thing about Roof Plus is the ability to export to various CNC machines and production lines. Note this is an optional feature, so if you actually are dealing with manufacturing, then to have a CNC export could be a great advantage. The workflow is quite simple. When your roof panels are fully framed and assemblies are ready, you can export the model data to a file format that can be read by the machine. And the machine in turn is going to read the file and cut structural members accordingly. We can tailor the data export requirements to suit the type of CNC machinery that you are using, and we offer CNC exporters to match the type of machinery that you have. Okay, so for the CNC export, I'm gonna leave it for the end of the webinar, where I'm gonna show how you can export a main frame of a prefabricated panel and generate the file, and then I'm gonna open up a CNC viewer or explorer, and I'll show you how it looks like just before you would normally send it to the machine to be cut. Okay, so the L grid is coming together, and then we're gonna generate those valley trusses, and then I'm gonna array the main big truss to the right, where we have already the other half of the roof framed with trusses. Okay, so that's done. I'm just gonna try to select that grid of valley trusses and then generate those valley trusses. Okay, as you can see, the end types can be changed. We have those kind of ends right now. The better way to do that would be to have a base offset for the roof more than 210 that we have now, to allow more space, and perhaps we can extend the overhang and to allow to sort of play with end types. So if I select this truss here, if I go to trusses, modify truss ends, I can pick which truss end I want to use. So for example, if I select this one, click OK, the tool is going to update to the end I just picked automatically. Okay, it has updated, but you can see there's barely enough space to have this kind of truss end type. Okay, so our valley truss is generated, as well as our corner grid trusses are all in place. Okay, so if I just expand my scope box to the other side, where I have already framed those trusses to be exactly the same. Okay, and this, we're just missing this bigger truss here. Okay, and once that's done, I'm gonna show you how you can array trusses between two existing trusses. So if you're not sure, like well, how many trusses you have space for, you can automatically array between two existing trusses. So all I need to do is just select those opposing trusses, go to trusses, drop down menu, auto copy to roof floor trusses, select that, and then I'm gonna try to do 800 centers, start from one side, I guess, and update from roof. Okay, so once that's done, I have a piece of roof right here that sits on top of those trusses. So that's that same roof that I used for generating grids, that same Revit roof I had at the beginning, that's still here. And what I've done, I've used a roof panel layout tool that comes together with Roof Plus, and I've used that tool, which I'll show you how to use it later. I've used that tool to sort of split the roof into panels. Okay, so that's my main roof, and that's one side of the roof I have split. Okay, right, so I'm gonna need Roof Plus right now. I'm gonna delete those battens because they're probably left over from previous webinar. Okay, so I'll show you how you can do it from fresh. Okay, so if I just select that one roof, right, if I go to frame roof, drop down menu, add secondary frame. So I'm gonna add secondary frame and add battens, then I'm gonna split parts. By splitting parts, you typically, using our tools, you get your insulation and sheathing layers, and whether it's flooring as well, you can do that. Okay, so perhaps what I'm missing just now, if I go to here, align elements, I'm going to try to align my secondary frame with trusses. Okay, thing because the trusses are spaced out at varying distances. It's a bit harder to align, but anyway, you can do that. You can align the elements one to each other. Okay, and then select that. Make sure you select that exact roof, and then go to frame roof drop down menu, add battens. Okay, so we have secondary frame and battens in place. What I'm still going to do is split parts to get my sheathing. Okay, you can't see sheathing because splitting parts is done for Revit parts. So to do that, if you go to parts visibility on your left, from show original switch to both, in this way you'll be able to see both framing and sheathing. Okay, and what I'm going to do, go to settings, configurations, configuration file location. I'm going to use this file location. Essentially, you keep configurations as files on your local hard drive. You can create as many configurations as you want. So I have my roofing configuration in a different configurations folder, which I have just selected. And if I go to, actually first I select the roof and go to frame roof drop down menu, add roofing. Okay, my roofing has been added. Okay. Roofing types can be, of course, changed, or we can create new ones. That can be edited. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few other things within this model, and we're going to go to rafter framing. Okay, so to have the context, we have walls and floors and roofs now framed with the trusses, and roofing has been added. Again, that's all looking good, right? So if I just scroll down, right? So you can also generate your structural analytical views, which you can export to external software to sort of perform full sort of structural analysis. You can do that within Revit as well, but essentially they're just showing you that each structural framing member is represented by analytical line, and then everything else from that point on just works with sort of typical Revit workflow. Okay, and more than that, you can create drawings, of course, sections. You have your trusses in the view. You can edit those trusses as a whole or just by individual members. Okay, you can add dimensions. So let's see which of the sections doesn't have dimensions. Okay. Right, so the great thing about our dimensions is that you can add dimensions automatically. If you go to create assembly drop down, smart dimensions right here, and in the menu you can just select dimension elements in view, and it's going to ask you what part of the element, what layer of element you want to dimension. So in this case I'm going to do for the main frame, essentially for trusses and floors and walls, the main frame for walls and floors and trusses. Okay, if you click OK, then it's going to produce dimensions automatically, which can be edited, of course. The size of dimensions and the way they generated, the way they sit on your drawing can be edited, and you can also edit what you want to dimension. Okay. And here we can see our trusses that are in place. Okay, so I think that's it for the trusses. There's quite a lot of other things we can go through, but perhaps in the future webinar, or as I mentioned, you can access our video content on YouTube. Okay, right. So I'm just going to open a model for rafters. So with the rafters, starting point is the same. You should have your Revit roof in place. Okay, and once you have that, what you can do, if you go to create modify and you pull out the roof panel layout, and then in this menu, what I'm going to do, among many other functions, the primary purpose of this is to split Revit roofs into either prefabricated panels or into sort of segments. So I'm going to split in the roof into segments. Okay, so if I select to create a region, okay, I can join some of the regions if I think this doesn't represent the layout that I want. Okay, and once that's done, I can go back to the main interface menu, create panels for the whole roof. If I select sort of a perimeter region line that has been just generated, so now you see it has split my entire Revit roof into sort of panels, into segments. Okay, so once I have that, I can close this and close this. And by the way, my main roof is still in place. It hasn't been deleted. It's still in place, but I also have now my panels. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start framing my rafters. If I select all those sides I want to frame, so I have 6 roofs I'm going to frame. Okay, and before that, actually, if I go to configurations and swap, change it back to my original, where my main configurations are. Okay, and then click on frame roof. It's automatically going to frame all those 6 roofs I have just created. Okay, so it's going to produce rafters. And then we're going to insert ridges, hip valleys, and all the rest. Okay, right, so our rafters are in place. What we can do now, if you go to Insert Rafters drop-down menu, go to Insert All Ridges, and then it allows you to select one of those lines, and then you just select the configuration you want to use for your ridges. Okay, our ridges are in place, and rafters are cut accordingly. Okay, what we can do also, if you go to this drop-down menu, we go to Cut, Delete, Move, etc., and we're gonna cut beams with solid, and we're gonna select those wall top plates, and by doing that, we're gonna cut into rafters, so we actually have a nice and clean cut. Okay, so I'm just multi-selecting all those top plates. Okay, and our rafters are now cut. Okay, we can cut them via the way I'm doing right now, or there are other ways how we can frame roof and rafters would be cut automatically. Okay, so what we want to do now, if I just move to top view and I again go to this menu, go to align elements, I'm going to try to align my rafters to sort of match. Okay. Okay, so the framing around windows can be changed using, you can create configurations, so you can use default configurations, and you can frame around windows according to your standards. Okay, I'm gonna just do that. Okay, so the training session that I mentioned that we're going to have on Friday and Tuesday is going to be sort of starting, sort of a getting started sort of session. So that's where I'm going to explain a bit more and go more into configurations generally. Okay, so go back to Insert Rafters and select Insert All Hip Valley Rafters. Okay, and I go to Insert Sleepers, and I have 2 places where I'm going to insert my sleepers. Okay, and this one goes here. Okay, so it seems like most of the structural sort of framing is in place. Okay, so what we're going to quickly do now, I'm gonna change my scope box, and we're gonna add collar ties. Okay, so first of all, we're just gonna use native Revit functions like join. So we're gonna join this. So that's a roof element essentially. Okay, I want to make sure it's joined properly. Okay. Right, and we're gonna do the same for the top roof. Okay, so as you see, if I select this is just a roof type I have created. Okay, so if I select those two, click on frame, I'm gonna add my collar ties, and I'm gonna do the same for the top piece there. Then I'm gonna align those collar ties and add an angle cut to match the rafters. Then I'm gonna split those roofs to get my sheathing, top and bottom sheathing layers, and then I'm gonna add additional layers for remaining roof structure. Okay, that's in place. I'm just gonna do exactly the same for this one. Okay, so those are in place. I'm gonna align them first. So I'm gonna use align joist face to selected face. So I'm gonna align this to the rafter face. And I'm gonna do exactly the same. It'll be harder to select the, yeah, okay, that's the face I want to align to. Okay, those are aligned. Just gonna do exactly the same here. Okay, so this already has a cut angle that I'm gonna apply to the other end. Okay, switch this off. Right, so now let's select elements by member type in frames. If I just pick one, I should be able to select all of them. And then if I apply angle at -60 degrees, that already cuts it. And then what I'm going to do is perhaps apply, just extend the end slightly. Okay, and you can see how this has changed. So you can do exactly the same, and it's quite fast, as you can see. So I'm going to match those start end extensions, and we're going to add -60 on the other side. Okay, and you can see that we have adapted the collar ties to the rafters. Okay, you would do the same. Okay, this end is actually already cutting. Okay, right, so moving on, I'm just gonna split parts for all those 3 roof elements. Okay, I think I missed this one out. Okay, and if you go to show both, I can see that my sheathing layers have been added. Okay, and those can be customized the way you want them to be. Okay, let's switch back to original just to see the main frame, and then expand our scope box. Perhaps expand it all the way. Okay. Right, and then just by selecting those roofs, I'm going to select a few of them just to save time. If I go to frame roof drop down menu, add secondary frame, and I'm going to add battens and add roofing, and then insert additional capping for ridges and hip valleys. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna add the battens. Okay, so we have added our battens. right? And our secondary frame, which can be aligned, kind of it's already aligned. And then I'm gonna select a couple of roofs. Actually, perhaps this one, and perhaps I want to change that configuration file location to where my roof configuration sits. Select this, add roofing. Okay, and then for this one, of course, I can split parts to get my sheathing. Okay, sorry, it's we're not framing the whole roof because we have a time constraint for the webinar, but you can see how each panel is right in place. We have battens. Those haven't been roofed, and this one has. So there's our roofing. This board can of course be dropped down further. Okay. And then also what we can do, we can now add capping. Okay, so insert all caps. Okay, you can get a lot of done just by using default configurations. Insert all ridge caps. Okay, we just select the ridge and use default configuration. Okay, something's happened. Okay, there you go. So the capping is in place. If we switch back to original, we can see the multi-layered roof that we have. Okay, and then from that point on, we do have a structural analysis view opened, so this can be further analyzed, or so structural analytics can be performed for that. And then we have a cross section again. We can use smart dimensions to add dimensions for the section, but essentially you can see how our collar ties are in place. They are cut according to the rafters. The rafters are in place, ridge beams as well, and roofing and battens and everything else, right? Okay, so I'm quickly going to demonstrate another new sort of feature that we have introduced, which allows you to frame your roof panels or entire roofs in the direction, you can specify the span direction basically using those roof span direction lines, which you can draw manually. Okay, so if I just, for example, select those 3 roofs. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna switch back my, okay, select those 3, for example, click on frame roof. I'm gonna get my sort of rafters in a direction that is specified by roof span direction arrow, which has been drawn manually. Okay, and while it's loading, the other thing I want to recommend, well, that's actually the article that has come out today, talking about the new features of updated Roof Plus that comes for Revit 21. So that's just talking about all various details which I'm actually showing during the webinar. You can read this through if you like. And I'm gonna show you how you can download and test the software for yourself. So if you head to our main website and you scroll down, go to free trials, you can download the Tools4BIM Dock, which I showed you right at the beginning for those Revit versions. This just explains how to use it. Getting started section has sort of manuals in PDF format, video content of again how to use it. If you go to download section, you can actually download Tools4BIM Dock and use, I think, 2 weeks of free testing of the software, and this way you can make sure whether it works for you or it doesn't. Okay, so our span direction has worked, and now I'm just gonna repeat that for this one and see if it works. Make sure you draw on the face, on the top face in this case. Okay, and then this has been drawn. I'm just going to try to frame and see if it comes out properly. Okay, so you can see how this, in this case, it's an eye joist rafter that we have spanning the direction I have specified using the arrow. Okay, right. So that's one of the new features. The other one is the end cuts. Okay, so in this view you have generated some varying end cuts for our rafters. Okay, that can be specified. The angles and the way it cuts the rafter can be specified. Okay. Okay, various types. And then let's just generate this one. Okay, again, that's a different cut type. Okay, and you can specify within the rafter family, you want to cut it, how deep, how wide, etc. All those dimensions can be specified, and it does actually allow you quite a lot of flexibility, creating your own frames or something that's a bit more bespoke. Okay, right, so let's now move on to the next model. We're just again gonna open it up from scratch. Okay, we're gonna look into panels. Okay, so starting point is exactly the same. You have your Revit roof ready. Okay, and we have kind of framed half of the roof already. So first off, what I can do is insert all ridges. No, actually I can't because I haven't split my panels. Okay, so I'll open this here, region layout settings. I'm gonna take automatically split panels. So that means when I create region layout for the whole roof, I'm gonna create not just region layout, I'm gonna create panel layout as well. So that just saves us time. Okay, and then again, unwanted layout lines can be joined to the ones on the left and right, okay. Right, so once this is done, escape, create panels for the whole roof, select one of those panels. Panels should be created according to the layout lines. This is just telling me that the windows are duplicated. Okay, and the panels are in place. Okay, so let's insert all ridges and see how it works. Okay, if I select correct configuration, and those ridges can be changed. The size of those ridges can be changed if I select the ridge, and then just like a normal Revit family, you can change the size, height, and width, and all of the sort of all other features that you want to add. Okay. Okay, this has changed right now. Okay, so let's just frame those panels. Perhaps to save time, I'm not going to frame all of those, but okay, if I switch to see original, to see just the frame. Okay, and you can see how those frames are added. I can align things, I can modify the frame and exclude the soffit boards, for example. Yeah, those are soffit boards. If I untick those, I'm going to exclude those. So to see this triangular roof panel that by configuration should have soffit boards like those other ones, and I've just unticked and sort of has updated the frame. And again, I can align my bridging. If I select this one and select the one here, so it's aligned. Okay, so the other half of the roof already has secondary frame and battens in place. What it's missing is splitting parts to get our sheathing. Okay, and in here I'm going to show you how to insert sleepers. So go insert rafters, drop down menu, insert sleepers, and just select where the sleeper has to go. Okay, this one is in place. Okay, we have two sleepers in place. I'm going to frame those two roof sides for the dormer situation. Okay, again, we can use cut solid with a beam to get our rafters within the panels to be cut where the top plate is. Okay, so so let's just move on to the next, to the other side of the roof. And Okay, and you see how this all is framed. That can be modified as well, pulled out or in, and the layout of structural framing can be modified. Okay, so I'm just trying to select those roofs I want to split parts for. Okay, this one. Okay, if I click on split parts, I'm going to get my sheathing layers in place. If I switch to see both, there I have my sheathing layers in place. Okay, and further down you can add your roofing. Okay, again I'm changing my configuration, file location, and I'm going to try to add roofing. Perhaps this one here. Okay, switch back to original, add roofing. I'm gonna add roofing for this one as well. Okay, if something comes out not exactly correct, you can always update without actually going that deep to the configurations. So I believe this has to do with this parameter here, and now I should update so that the roofing piece doesn't come out too much. Okay, so and then we can insert ridge cap. So all of that is done, and following the same principles you can finish off the roof. Okay, and then again structural analysis can be done. Okay. Okay, and then we have a roof plan that we can add dimensions to. Okay, dimension elements in view. It's going to ask me which part of the frame I want to dimension. So I select main frame, I should be able to get all my dimensions in the plan view. Okay, there we go. Of course, they are on top of each other, but that can be adjusted via configurations, and all that can be sort of tailored. Okay, so I'm going to switch all of those off. Right, so what we have left and to cover in this webinar, I appreciate we already have exceeded our time. So I'm going to open the last model and quickly show you how we can create assembly, meaning you can create shop drawings and then export that assembly to CNC. Okay, so in this case, as a sample file, we have panels already framed, and we select that one panel. If we again open Roof Plus, and I'm gonna go to create assembly. So what it's doing is automatically generating views, tags, dimensions, and schedules. It's gonna create sheets and place those views on the sheet according to how I set up my layout, and not all that is done automatically. Okay, so that has become an assembly, and with all the identity data. And before you actually create assemblies, you would number your elements to get all that data filled in. Then create assembly. Assembly is created, and then under assemblies in project browser, I think this is the one we just created. We have two sheets with views, with drawings essentially placed, and with dimensions, with tags for each structural member, view names and schedules, and everything else you need for your sort of shop drawings. Okay, let's go back to this view, and I have this CNC exporter available. Okay, so I'm gonna export selected roof frames to CNC and click that, and I'm just gonna select that frame I have just created assembly for, and I'm gonna export this to a file format, which I'm gonna open in my CNC viewer. Okay, it's just telling me where where it has placed that file. If I copy this file path, and then if I just open new Explorer window, paste this, and so automatically opens up in my Explorer, sort of a CNC viewer, and I can just have a look at the frame. The frame does consist of, you can faintly see there how each framing member is tagged with identity data, unique information, and you can further explore the frame before sending it to the CSC machine. And we can see how our future cut lines are in place. So just exactly how we have modeled our frame in Revit. The exact same frame is right here with us, and this can be further sent down to a CNC machine and be cut one by one and then be assembled as a full panel that can be brought on site. Okay, so that's exactly that same frame which we have a drawing of right here. Okay, right, so that is it. Thank you for your time. Thanks to all attending the webinar. Hopefully see you in the future webinars, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you all.
AGACAD, building BIM together.